So greetings to all the participants who are a part of this virtual conference. On the onset, I'd like to thank the organizing committee for giving me this opportunity. But before that, just like to talk about the in aspect of the conference here. So this international conference is basically dealing with strategies of self-dependency on COVID-19, an application of exotic material in the field of physics, chemistry, biology, medicine, and engineering. So basically, the technique of tackling COVID-19 is more or less interdisciplinary in nature, and I think this is a very apt movement to organize such event to actually create awareness about the pandemic that we have. So I'd like to thank the Department of Physics, SVP College, Bhabhua, and of course Society for Technological Advanced Materials of India. I'm Dr. Sandip Choudhury from NIT Nagaland, and today I'd be just talking about the statistical analysis of COVID-19. I'm not really going to take up any data and analyze this from a personal point of view. I'm not going to do any kind of calculation as such, but I'm going to show you 4 different websites which does a very good analysis. In fact, some of these websites data are taken up for doing research work. So I guess a statistical analysis of this is quite valid, and the data that are being provided in these websites are quite self-explanatory, and a lot of informations are available. So we'll just have a look at those informations. But before I start, I'd like to thank the chief patron, Professor D.P. Tiwari, the Vice Chancellor of Veer Kunwar Singh University, ARA. I'd like to thank the patron, Dr. Satish Narayan Lal, the principal of SVP College, and of course Dr. R.P. Tandon, Department of Physics and Astrophysics, University of Delhi. I'd also like to thank the conference chair, Dr. Kishore Chandra Revatkar, who is also the STEMI General Secretary. But my heartfelt gratitude and thank goes to Dr. Rajkumar Gupta of SVP College, because of whom actually I'm here, because he told me that I can be a person who can actually deliver some relevant lecture on the said virtual conference topic. So with this, I'd like to begin with the presentation today, and this presentation, since it's recorded, and you might be getting this recording quite late, but today, as on 25th, this recording is very much relevant. Might be the datas will change down the line, but let's not concentrate on that right now. So what I wanted to tell you about this is 4 different websites. The first website that I'm going to talk about is the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. It basically has very much authentic data. So there has been a lot of hoax, a lot of WhatsApp forwards, and people are not really positive about it for the simple reason that these things actually turn out to be something which misleads, a lot of misleading information. So it's very important that we look into the authentic sites to get relevant information. So based on this very simple thing that we just need authentic information, I'm going to refer to 4 different sites. The first site is Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. The second site that I'm going to take is basically a funded website, okay, and this is basically Worldometer. A lot of data is available here, and a lot of graphs are also there, which actually can be analyzed, and it can give you quite relevant information in the status of coronavirus at the current scenario. The third website, of course, is very important, the organization who is fighting in the upfront for tackling this pandemic, the World Health Organization. And this website actually gives a representation via the map and also provides a lot of data to understand the exact scenario. Okay, so this is something which is, I guess, important to us, because we need to know a lot of statistical data, need to do a lot of analysis if you are anywhere near research doing on this pandemic, to know the current scenario. The fourth website, which is actually my personal favorite, and this is actually one of the better websites, because the analysis that is being done from this particular website, that is Corona Tracker, is quite good. They are working on a lot of topics here, and the graphs are very much relevant to the current scenario. In this particular website, they have not only listed the countries, they have also analyzed each of these countries' graph, and there are a lot of information which has been found. But we are going to refer to the first website and look into some important information that are being provided here. And as of now, on 25th morning, okay, It's the date is 25th May 2020, and then there are 777,103 active cases, 57,720 discharged, 4,021 deaths reported, and one has been migrated. So in case if you look into any kind of data where they are giving an information of the number of coronavirus cases in a country, this is basically an addition of all these four numbers, and that actually gives you the value which is actually being displayed everywhere. For example, in US they do say that there is 16 lakh plus cases, and India we are above 1 lakh now, 1,30,000 odd, so that these cases are all added up together. So if this website which belongs to the government also gives an information about the state-wise data, and if you look into the state-wise data, and as this is an international conference, I am also going to refer to two other countries, that's US and China. But in this website, since it belongs to India, it basically deals only with the details of the Indian cities. So if you look here, Maharashtra is basically having a maximum number of 50,231 cases, and if you go up, you see that the second column basically belongs to cured, discharged, or migrated. So if you look for Maharashtra here, 14,600 has been already migrated, but 1,635 cases there are deaths. So the thing here is to analyze from a statistical point of view is what is the percentage of recovery and what is the percentage of death has been reported. Okay, so if we look into some other cases, okay, from this you see that most of these things are not statistical in nature, and these data are only provided as a basic view. Okay, so basically if you look into this website, and if you want to actually get any kind of information regarding the status and regarding the information given by the government, you can definitely visit this website. But I'm not really going to talk about these things right now, not being theoretical but more mathematical and statistical. I will be actually going, this is the first part of my lecture. In the second part of my lecture, I am going to tell you some basics about coronavirus and what are some scientific logic based on which actually there is this concept of isolation in quarantine, and how exactly that can help in order to tackle the disease, in order to bring down the number of cases down. Okay. So the next website that I'm going to refer to is Worldometer. Now Worldometer is basically a funded project basically, and it also gives an idea about the population of different countries. And after the coronavirus pandemic, they have also worked on this, and they are giving more information about the coronavirus data. So if you look into this, these are just figures, and that can always be seen. Okay. But let's just have a look of the total number of cases that is existing as of now. It's 48,95,036. Okay, so if we look into this, okay, let me just change my pen color here. So if you look into this number, it's actually around touching 50 lakhs. In fact, as per some website, it has already crossed 50 lakhs in the world population. And if you look into the number of deaths that has been reported is 3,20,000. So we can always take a percentage of these two values and find out the result. Okay, and this is the number of cases which is recovered, which is around 19 lakhs. Okay, so that means that from some point of view we can definitely say that the number of recovered cases are more, number of deaths are less. So obviously that's something to look forward to, which is something more positive. Okay, now let's just have some graphical representation of this. So if you just have a graphical representation and look into this, this is more important here. Now the currently infected patients, okay, the currently infected patients and the mild conditions are something which we can look here. Now mild condition, by mild condition it means that the chances of recovery is much more. Now we always wonder, as a matter of fact, that if the antivirus is not yet out and if the disease cannot be cured, then how do the patients recover? Okay. Now this is a very simple aspect which I am going to deal with in the next part of the lecture, and that part actually deals with this case of mild condition. So if the condition is mild, the chances of recovery are definitely more. But if the condition is critical or serious, and as you might have already heard that people are being put in ventilators, and there are not many ventilators to put that many number of people. So this is basically something which deals with the serious or the critical cases. So this is 2% of the data. One more thing to look forward to is actually the cases which actually has been closed. Okay, so we are not going to concentrate on that, but let me just give you this very important information that 86% has been discharged, okay, or recovered or discharged, okay. Basically this 86% is out of the cases which had an outcome. So these outcome might be either death or basically recovered or discharged, okay. So out of these many cases which has already an output, 14% was the mortality rate, okay, and 86% is basically nothing but the recovery rate. So this is something which is again positive, okay. But if you just have a look at the graph here, and what we see here is that this graph is rising. So initially when it was reported in the mid of Jan from China, Wuhan, it basically was not rising that far, and this is, please remember, this is the picture of the entire world. But as we came to mid of March, it started rising, and this is basically rising and showing an exponential behavior. What we want is, now we know that basically something which is called flattening the curve. Now this is a term which has been used again and again, flattening the curve. By flattening the curve, we mean that this should go something like this. And this is something which we are going to see, which has been actually observed in China, which is something which is positive for the entire world. So if we just go further and we just look into the total number of cases, here also the same thing has happened, and the graph has rose exponentially, okay. And if you go to this particular website and if you want to look into a figure, you can tap on the map on the graph on the any point on the graph, and you can see that as on May 4 the total number of cases was 36,39,330. So everything is on the rising scale. If we think about it regionally, yes, of course some region they have already recovered quite well, but on a world scenario we definitely want the picture to get much better, and they should actually flatten out. Similarly, something which is also look into the total number of deaths. Now if you look into total number of deaths, this graph does show a behavior of dip, okay, and this is something which sounds positive, but we have to still observe it for some longer time, because as per some reports it has been said that by the mid of July, July, the number of cases is going to be more, okay. It is going to even explode further, and this is not something which I am saying, this is something which has been done in some research work, okay. I can refer to that paper in the other lecture. Now this website also gives you the data or the information of a particular country, okay. So if you just look into USA, and we know, let me just bring USA, India and China on the same scale, okay, on the same picture. So we have it here. So if we just look into three figures here, this is USA and that's India. India was quite at the bottom. Now this is the only graph where, or only table where all the country wants to be at the bottom and not at the top, of course, okay. So in USA the maximum number of the cases that has been reported so far has been 15,50,000. I think it has very well crossed 16 lakhs as per some other websites. In India the figure is shown here is 1,01,000. Now this is again something which is not yet updated, because the figure is already touched 1,38,000 now. In China the number of cases has been 82,000, but if you look into the number of new cases, this has not been given on a country basis because they might not be having the data. But the number of new cases, if you look into China, is quite less. We are going to look into more authentic data based on this, okay. But what is interesting here is, let's say I want to tap a graph, so let me just tap one graph here, okay, and let's just look into some of the graphical representation for United States. So since this is an international conference, I'm going to refer to three countries here. United States, which is having the maximum number of cases. So this page has already updated. It's above 16 lakhs 86,000, touching 17 lakhs now. And the number of deaths reported has been 99 lakhs 300, okay, 99,300. So I'm going to refer to three countries here, USA, because that has got the maximum number of cases. I'm going to refer to China, which is actually showing a very good improvement, already shown a lot of improvement. Still there are new cases because of some influx of the people who are coming back to the country. And then of course we are going to talk about India. So if we just look into some graphs for USA here, you can look into this particular graph, okay, and then this might not be a very clear picture. Probably we should just go into some other website and show it to you, okay. So I'll definitely show these figures to you, but right now I just want to tell you about this total number of cases that we have as on 25th May, okay. And if we go to India, we can see that the update that is being here is 1,39,000, so it is 1,40,000 touching. But the deaths reported is 4,024. Despite having more number of cases than China, the number of deaths reported is still less. as of now. Okay, and then let's just go back and look for China now. So if you look into China, the current scenario, in the current scenario, China is basically having much less cases as reported. Okay, so you see China actually had a total of 82,985 cases, and more or less this has stopped. If you look in that larger scale, you see that the number of growing cases has reduced, and the deaths reported is 4,634, and number of recovery was 78,268. The aim of this particular presentation is not to bring in a sense of fear, but in a sense of relief that finally we can actually recover. How can we say that? Because you look into this particular graph of China and look into something which we call as the active cases here. Okay, so if you look here into the number of active cases, what we see is that the number of cases are rising, and it has basically achieved a peak, and then finally it has started to come down. So if we look into this case here, what is satisfying is that the number of cases are definitely coming down. So if I just tap on this particular graph here and look into this particular figure, let's say around February 17th, the number of infected cases was 58,016. Okay, so then as it kept on reducing, the number of infected cases came down, and finally around April 7, number of cases reduced to 1,376, and as of today we can see on May 28 the currently infected cases is 87. So that means maximum cases has shown result. Of course there were some deaths reported, but most of the cases recovered. In fact, the recovery rate in China is more than 90%. Now this is the graph which I want to see for the entire world, or we want to see it for the entire world to happen, and of course for region wise also, even for India or US, everywhere this is the behavior of the graph that is expected. Okay, this is something which we should see. Now this is something which I was talking about, which is called the flattening the graph. So as I told you, what do you mean by flattening? Now you see these are the total corona cases, these are the total number of cases that we have. Okay, and then at some point it kept on rising, so everywhere we can see that this is actually rising. But for China, what happened after a specific date, it's approximately, let's say, February 23rd, the number of cases started reducing, and then it started to straighten out. So if it straighten out, that means the number of cases are not rising exponentially, and on that larger scale this looks almost straight. Of course there are cases which are reported on a daily basis, but this is basically getting straight. So this is what is basically referred to as the flattening of curve, and this is something which is expected, and this is what is the need for the current status. Okay, now if you look into the daily new cases in China, if you look into this particular figure, you can refer to this particular date. So let's refer to this particular date. If we refer to this particular date, you see that this was February 21st. Okay, this was February 12th, sorry, it was February 12th. Okay, so there is some problem with the resolution here. Let me just reduce it here. So this is February 12th, and on that particular day the maximum cases has been reported in China, which is 14,108. But that was long back, it's May now. And if you look into now current scenario, what we see here is that the number of cases has definitely reduced. Okay, in fact they on that scale they are even not representing this. Okay, so this was on April 17th when the daily cases reported was 325. Okay, so this is another scenario. Here what happens is it is observed, if you just avoid the extreme changes, this rises up and then slowly reduces, and then we have got this kind of shape. Okay, except one or two which actually increased at the middle. Now this is again encouraging, and this actually shows that this actually will happen. Finally, active cases has also reduced, and that also shows similar behavior to the total number of cases. Okay, so this is again an interesting graph here. What you see here is on May 24th or May 25th around, okay, or April 1st, the deaths reported were not increasing, and all of a sudden on April 17th, in a single day or in a span of 2 or 3 days, the number of deaths reported was actually near about 1,000. But then again it started reducing, and then if you look here, it's on April 22nd, death reported was 4,632, and on May 14th 4,633. So only one death has been reported, and then it increased to two more. So two deaths in a span of around 16-17 days is is very much good, because in a way we can say that the mortality rate has definitely reduced. So if you look into this daily death report, this has risen and then it has dropped, but this was only an exception. All of a sudden one day there was some more deaths which has been reported. Okay, so these are some of the information that is being observed from this particular website. But let me not just concentrate on this particular website, let me go take you to the WHO's official website. So if you go to the official website of the World Health Organization, it's actually quite innovative and quite interactive, because what happens is these graphs that you can see, this is for the entire world. It can definitely be moved around. Okay, so what I want to say is, let's say I want to just check for the world figure. So if I look into the world figure as per the WHO website as on 18th May, okay, so this they have not updated, probably I have not refreshed it. Should I refresh it once? Okay, let me just refresh this graph once. Okay, maybe I'll be getting the updated result here. So if I just refresh it, let's see. So what happens is this particular website doesn't give too much graphical representation. In fact, Corona Tracker gives a lot of graphs here. Okay, this is something which we are going to see. But if you go to the WHO website, you can actually find out the COVID-19 information there. Okay, and then if we just allow it to load for some time, we can definitely find it out. So this is basically the coronavirus disease dashboard of the WHO website. Okay, and then you can definitely look into this. Yes, so this is better now, this is much better. So this is updated. So this is as on May 24th. Okay, so if you just look here, as on May 24th, we had got 52 lakhs 6,614 confirmed cases, and 3,37,000 and 736 deaths has been reported so far by WHO. Okay, so if you look into this the figure, this is something which is not very encouraging. What happened was, initially the confirmed cases were not high, and then it slowly started rising, and it's still on a rise. Although it's not fluctuating much, but it's still on a rise. We want this to actually not rise, okay, and basically straighten out, okay, flatten out. So that is very important. So this is what is expected. Okay, and if you go here, death over time, this is also actually, this for now we can actually say it's okay, but I think this is too short a period to actually do, because any kind of statistical analysis needs a number of data, a number of days. So you see that if you look into it, roughly the number of deaths are actually slowly coming down. Hopeful that someday this will be somewhere here. Okay, so we need this much. If you compare region wise, America is actually having the maximum number of cases. Okay, it's around 23 lakhs odd. And if you look into Asia, the number of cases reported is 1,94,000. Okay, out of which India, China are some of the major contributors in that list. Okay, and then if we just look into the graphs here. Okay, this graph is not very much helpful. I'm going to show you more graphs in the later cases. But before I go to this, what you can do is you can actually go into these, zoom into this, and suppose you want to see the picture of India, you can just tap here. Okay, you can just tap on this, and once you tap here, you basically get the results of India. Okay, now what is alarming or important here is to note is the daily cases. So you see, as per WHO on 24th May, the number of cases reported has been 6,767. Quite sadly, this number of reported cases is rising every day, which is not a very happy picture. So if you look into this website, and the cases of reported for India is not much different from the other two websites that we have seen. But then if you compare it with the global scenario, the confirmed cases over time is keeping on increasing, and you see on a daily basis the number of cases are getting more and more. Because if you click on this particular graph, let's say I'll just click here, or might be some later figures. Okay, so if we just click here, okay, you see on May 24th it's 6,767 cases and 113 daily increase. So it has been 113 more cases than May 23rd. So what is the number of cases on May 21st? So you see 5,609. So that means the number of cases is actually on a rise, which is something which we don't want. Okay, it is actually on a rise. Death over time, that is also on a rise. So if you look at it from an Indian point of view, this is not a very happy scenario, and this is also something which is also valid for US. Okay, they are also having these kind of cases. So let's just go into this final website, and let me just give you a brief detail of this particular website. Again, this website doesn't look to be updated. Okay, let me just update this. So if we just update this, as of today the total number of cases is 55 lakhs, okay, and this is actually reporting maximum number of cases. And to be on the safer side, let's just consider this figure to be more or less closer to reality. So if we talk about the recovered cases, it's 23 lakhs 3000, and 3 lakh 46,000 has been number of deaths that has been reported. So if you consider this to be 23 lakhs here, that means the total number of recovery percentage is near about not exactly 50%, somewhere in the vicinity of 40%. Okay, so if you just look into this is basically a funded website, so they do have a lot of ads there. But no doubt, let's just look into some of the data. So I'll just go one by one. Let's just look into the figures of USA and look into the graph there. So what is interesting here is this. So you see confirmed cases, this is the number recovered, and this is the deaths reported. So there is something which is very important, which we usually look, or the government is concerned about, is something which we call as the fatality rate. By fatality rate, we mean that out of the total confirmed cases, what percentage has been reported as fatal, okay, or how many people have died, okay, what percentage of people have died. So you see this figure is around 5.9%, okay. Obviously we don't want it even to be 0.0001%, okay, we don't want any fatality, of course. Recovery rate is 26.8%, which is not very encouraging compared to the figures that we have from China, because in China the recovery rate is above 90%, but fatality rate is 5.9%. we have to consider that. So this is actually out of the total number of cases. Now this is another figure which is important, which is called the critical case. So the critical case means they are usually treated in ICU, and most of the time there is a need for ventilators. So 1% of the total cases is actually in critical state, but a good thing is that the 67.3% are daily cases which are actually receiving the treatment. Okay. So if we just go further down, we are having more data here. So if you look here, this particular figure, if you click on this, okay, if you click on this here, so you see this basically the blue graph basically shows confirmed. So what is important here, that this should reduce. So this should actually be less, and then this is recovered, okay, this is recovered, but I want that this should actually be more. Now this is important to be more, and this, the third one, which is basically death, this refers to death, this should be as less as possible, okay. That is what is the aim, and this is what is the graphical representation representing here, okay. And then again the daily incidences. Now as I've shown you for China and India, let's just look into for US, and you see that the daily number of incident cases actually cannot be it doesn't show a very good pattern, because it basically is on a rise. So if you consider this, that it has dropped and again it has risen, then again it has risen, then dropped, and then there is a rise, and then there is a rise, and then drop, then again it's rising, okay. So if you look into some recent value, so if you look here, you see that the confirmed case as on 24th May is 18,632. So compared to India, which has got around near about 7,000 confirmed cases on 24th May, US is more than double of that, okay. And to 25th May, the cases confirmed till now, okay, is 1077, but that is only till now, okay. We still have more time to go, because it's around 12 noon, okay. So that is the case here, okay. And then let's go back, and then let's just have a look at China, and get some kind of inspiration that yes, we can actually go and fight this virus, okay. This time we're definitely not working against an ideology, we are working something which is a virus here. So basically what's encouraging here is the recovery rate. So if you look into the recovery rate for China, it's 94.3%. So statistically that's a very good figure, but the fatality rate for China is again 5.6%. So the number of reported cases, out of that 5.6% deaths has been reported, and you can see that most of the cases has already recovered. And if this is the death, and if you add these two, you get somewhere around 83,000, okay. So you get around 82,000. So some 100 odd or even less than 100 cases are actually active now, okay. So if you just look into this daily confirmed cases, so you see here for China, if you look into this figure, the confirmed cases, the recovered cases are much higher, the death is much lesser. This is something which is good. And if you look into this graph, which is something which is encouraging, that new daily incidences are almost nil. So the new daily cases are next to nil, which is a very good inspiration. Okay, and let's just finally come back to the figures which is shown for India, which as of now doesn't give a very happy picture. But what is good about the data about India is the fatality rate is 2.9% compared to 5.9 and 5.6% of US and China. So we are the second biggest populated country, and still we are having a fatality rate of 2.9%. That means definitely the concept of lockdown, isolation, quarantine, everything has worked in our favor to some extent. Okay, but the recovery rate is 41.5%, which is definitely better than US, but we want this to rise and actually reach around 90-95%. So how exactly the recovery thing works is going to be a part of my next lecture. But then something to worry about is the total number of deaths has been reported is 4024, but we need to understand the fact that the total number of cases still active is still near about 80,000. Okay, it's about 80,000. So if we are having more deaths reported from that 80,000, then this is drastically going to change. So we are still not sure about this fatality rate percentage, but as of now the picture looks quite okay and acceptable. And then if you look here, this is again something which is not a very happy picture, as this is rising. So I need the flattening the graph. That means this is basically should come here. Okay, and this is not happening as of now in spite of the lockdown. And the daily cases reported are also on a rise, as you can see, as I've seen from some other graphs also, that this is rising, and there is no assurance that this will be actually here. It might definitely rise a bit more. Okay, so I hope these statistical informations were helpful, and this was the entire aim to bring in a sense of positivity within us. But definitely from a research point of view, these data means a lot, because a lot of work can be done considering these data and in order to plan the future to fight this pandemic. In the next part of the lecture, I'm going to go into more technical details. I'm not an expert on coronavirus, so definitely I cannot speak much on the scientific point of view, but definitely some of the important awareness and terminologies that should be known to us will be introduced in the next part of the lecture. Thank you.